Good morning, everyone. My name is John Eaglesham. I'm the Chief Exec of the Advanced Digital Institute, ADI. And I'm going to talk about new industries in a traditional setting and using Saltaire and salt mills as a starting point. I think it ties into quite well into the last part of Barra's presentation about the producer city. And a couple of the companies that are on Barra's slides I'll actually talk about very briefly. So what is ADI? We're an innovation and technology company, and we work with our clients to help them grow by increasing their R&D, product development and innovation. We were set up by Yorkshire Forward and Bradford Council in 2006, and we're now a successful, profitable and expanding commercial business. The title of the presentation is transforming services using new technologies, or traditional services using new technologies. And the heart of what we do as ADI is transforming traditional services with new technologies. And we work with clients in the energy sector, in the education, the learning sector, communications and health. And I think that gives us an interesting slant on the nature of industry and the nature of work within our district in 2013. So I'm going to go through some of those sectors in this talk. I'm just losing track of my presentation here. I'd also, the picture there of Salts Mill, and ADI is actually based in Salts Mill. And I think some of you actually went to have a look around Salts Mill yesterday. It's a large woolen mill. It was built by the Victorian industrialist Titus Salt. And he also built a complete village around it for all the mill workers. And so it's now a World Heritage Site, and it's of great interest to industrial historians. But I think it's also a very interesting example of what's happening in Bradford now. And so as I go through the presentation, I'll look at some of the businesses that are in and around Salts Mill now, because it's actually still a thriving hub of industry, of new types of industry, ADI being one of them, and I'll talk mainly about the companies that we work with. So I'm going to look backwards a bit to when Salts Mill was first built, which was 1853, and also looking now 160 years later in 2013. This slide just explains a little bit about ADI's scope and work in the sectors that we work in. And I think the important piece is just at the heart of that slide explaining ADI. We see that the fundamental idea is that technology is an enabler for growth in other sectors. So it's not an end in itself, it is an enabler for growth in other sectors. So that's who ADI is, what we are. So where are we? That's an aerial view of Saltaire. And that's ADI, our logo there. And we're right bang in the middle of Salts Mill, overlooking the canal and overlooking the weir and the River Aire. It's a beautiful setting. And there are some other great companies that are in and around the mill where we're placed there. So we've got Pace, Radio Design, Energy Switch 2, BTL, a number of others. And so I'll be talking about them briefly as I go through the presentation, the work we do with them and that they do, in the context of the different sectors and the different services. Here's Saltaire Village. When I first moved to Bradford area in 1997, I moved into one of the workers' houses, the original workers' houses in Saltaire. It's fantastic. We just used to be able to walk across the road to the mill. I've now got a family, so I've moved out of town to here, and that's my family. So that's Carolyn and Poppy and the delinquent dog Juno, and that's so my daily commute is a 10-minute walk along the canal to where I work in Salts Mill at ADI. So I'm very fortunate. It's just a fantastic place to live and work. I've been in and around Saltaire since I came here. So I want to use Salts Mill as the starting point and look at business in Saltaire over the last 160 years. Some things have changed and some things are constant. So, mill itself It's pretty much the same as it was in 1853. And there's the mill today. The nature of work is quite different. So, as Barry said, there's Bradford was built on the textile industry, weaving and manufacturing processes. The types of work of the kind of companies that we work with is quite different. So it's conceptual, it's design. It's one of my engineers there on the left who's designing a wireless network for in-home systems. Software engineers. Salts Mill, you probably didn't see any of them, but Salts Mill is absolutely packed full of software engineers. I used to be one of them, and there's hundreds of them, writing software for devices and for systems, and hardware and electronics testing. The kind of things that are produced is a picture from the Victorian Museum, from the Bradford Industrial Museum. I'm afraid to say I've got no idea what it is, but it's doing something complicated with wool. So this is a picture of 2013. This is kind of perhaps my worldview. Probably not many of you will recognise, but this is something called the Internet of Things. It's actually pretty illegible. There's this idea that increasingly objects all around us, in our entire environment, is being connected to the internet, and those objects and parts of the environment connect with each other and help create the services that we need. And you'll see aspects of that as I go through the rest of the presentation. So what kind of services are we talking about? So the areas entertainment, energy, education, lighting, healthcare, communications, integral to the life of the city, and also integral to the work that the businesses that we're engaged with do. So if we just take each of those service sectors one at a time. So if we look at entertainment in 1853, there's the family going out, looking at the bandstands, listen to a concert. Entertainment in 2013, there's the family watching the telly, watching some dodgy cooking program or something. And the entertainment delivery technology is what Pace does. So they're one of the sort of bright industrial points within Bradford, a huge employer, a great success story. And they develop decoders and display devices for digital television. And I used to work for them. It's the world's leading manufacturer of TV set-top boxes. Look at the energy sector. The energy sector in 1853, from a consumer's point of view, it wasn't very complicated. You just sort of stick it in the grate and set fire to it. Energy in 2013 is much more complex, and we're very concerned about the impact of energy usage on the climate. Carbon emissions, the impact on carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So here's some technologies, much more complex technologies than just coal delivery. There's a combined heat and power plant there. There's an in-home energy meter, both designed to help us reduce the wasted energy and to reduce costs. And here's a local company that's in the building next to Salts Mill called Energy Switch 2, a very successful company, and they work on developing smart meters for communal heating systems, controls of communal heating systems. Fantastically successful products. They've just demonstrated a 35% reduction in the energy utilization in social housing complexes in Kirklees. And we're hoping that we can do some deployments of this technology in Bradford in the next year. We developed the product on the right there, which is called the G6. ADI developed that for Switch 2. And it won the most innovative new product category at the Housing Innovation Awards in February 2013. Highly successful company. I'm very proud to be working with them. If you look at the education sector, if you look at vocational training, so 1853, learning on the job, apprenticeships, etc. In 2013, particularly for vocational training, but we're starting to see it in the school and university environment as well, we're starting to see this big shift to online learning and e-learning. And it's only really just started. but we think that it's the start of a massive trend. There's a local company called Virtual College who develop and deliver e-learning systems, and that April 2013 they just recorded 1 million learners online, and that's quite a milestone actually. A very successful UK company that's pioneering the use of e-learning in the vocational sector. Another local company just up the road from Salts Mills, BTL, does online assessments. The chairman of ADI, Bob Gundersall, started this company about 25 years ago, and they do on-screen assessments, marking, 2.5 million online assessments in 2012, and they're used by all but one of UK awarding bodies. Another great Bradford success story. So the service, lighting. Victorian times, the guy just goes up the ladder and lights the gas lamp. Lighting in 2013 is again, it's more complex. So we're starting to see wireless controls of lighting, partly to help modulate the environment as appropriate, change the luminance levels, reduce energy wastage. Also use of new types of lighting technology such as LED. Here's a company that we work with, probably stretching, they're actually based in Wakefield, so that we work closely with them. A company called Harvard Engineering, highly successful company again. They won the Made in Britain Award in February 2013. They're a very interesting example to me from a manufacturing point of view. When I was working with Pace in the late 90s, I saw them move the actual assembly and manufacturing offshore, which is now done in Asia and in the US and Mexico. Harvard Engineering has got a state-of-the-art assembly plant, fantastic. Just to see that, the very latest machines, technologies, assembling lighting technologies in Wakefield. Look at healthcare. Healthcare in Victorian times is very much about doctors visiting patients. In 2013, there's an explosion of innovation happening in healthcare. Most of it hasn't become apparent yet, certainly at the level of the sort of primary care. But we see there's huge opportunities, and there's a revolution taking place, and the change is necessary. The status quo, institution-based care just can't cope, and it won't be able to cope with an aging population and increasing expectations and demands. And so, a wide range of technologies, from doing stuff on your iPhone, doing stuff on video conferencing from a laptop, through to using the very latest technologies in genetics and image analysis and algorithms for diagnostics. Huge opportunities in healthcare. Locally, there's a company called Red Embedded, again, just next door to the mill, and we worked with them and with Airedale Hospital to do an example of a telemedicine system using technologies. My kids were born in Airedale Hospital, and so I've got to sort of feel it's a family, I've got a personal connection to it. And when I walk down the corridors in Airedale Hospital, and you see there's a new unit in there, which is the telemedicine unit. And so that's manned 24/7. It's got band 6, band 7 nurses in there, and there's video calls coming in from people who are poorly out in the Dales. And there's really moving testimonial from someone whose husband had died, and he'd been able to die at home because of the support she was able to get by calling in to Airedale Hospital and getting advice from consultants and nurses when she most needed it. And so the human impact of that technology is fantastic. It's got a national profile. It's seen as being an example of the kinds of future models for healthcare. And it's just the last example I'll go through. So the communications, communications in 1853, letters and post service. And communications in 2013, around us, we're using all kinds of devices and complicated technologies for communications. Very complex supply chains, very complex infrastructure. I think one of the companies that Barra mentioned is a company called Radio Design that does some work in Salts Mill and offices nearby. Got the Queen's Award for Innovation in 2011, and they've built some specialist components for 3G, 4G networks, the radio filters that go up on the masts. So from that, I just really coming to the end of my presentation, I just wanted to just draw a few themes from our observations, the companies we've been working with. So what do those companies have in common? And from the way we work with them and the way we advise them sometimes, these sectors are being increasingly driven by service thinking rather than product thinking. So it's not so much about creating a discrete product or a consumer good, it's about thinking about the service context. And many of these services we're talking about, energy, education, are complex and intertwined between the commercial elements to it and public sector elements to it. And so one of the things that we're very interested in and just wanted maybe just to fly as a kite within this conference really, is that as well as providing the conditions for growth and the conditions that technology-based companies need to grow, is actually involve technology companies more closely in designing what the services are going to look like for a particular city. Buy, build and test locally, and then give us the ability to sell worldwide. Here's my penultimate slide. So this is an example from, we went, and part of our business development and some of the stuff that we've been working on in these various sectors, and particularly in energy and health, we've been up talking with the Glasgow team who are doing Sustainable Glasgow and the Glasgow Future Cities Demonstrator. And they're thinking on very similar lines. So they're looking at integrated services across the city. And they're also looking at the economic opportunity for how the city can specify those integrated services, but then procure from local companies where possible. And we absolutely agree with them, except that we would prefer that they procured from Bradford technology companies. But we think that the model is very interesting. This is my final slide. So just my final. We would appeal to you to engage with local technology businesses when you're planning future services and ecosystems. Talk to us about what you're doing in energy. Talk to us about what you're doing in education and local service provision. I would say this, we're an SME, procure from local SMEs if you can. Become more tightly integrated with local businesses as their customer, as well as a supplier of infrastructure to them. And use SMEs whenever possible, because we're generally, in my opinion, faster, cheaper and more creative than the big corporates, and we're probably where the next big surge of growth is coming from.